Missouri School of Journalism, welcome to Global Journalist. I'm David Reed. There's a new twist to an epic territorial dispute between Japan and China. Japan's government plans to nationalize a group of tiny, uninhabited islands in the East China Sea that separates the two countries. Japanese newspapers are reporting this week that the government will pay the Japanese family that owns the islands about 2 billion yen, or $26 million. The problem is, China claims ownership to the islands, called Diaoyu in China and Senkaku in Japan. The dispute has simmered for generations and occasionally boils over, as it did a few weeks ago when activists from both countries pulled stunts that prompted large demonstrations in China. The Reuters news agency says the reported sale will likely fuel more tensions between Asia's two largest economies. No one lives on the rocky outcrops, but deep below the surrounding fishing areas are potentially rich gas deposits. But overall, this dispute is more than just about money. Later in the program, we'll hear from Martin Fackler, the Tokyo bureau chief of the New York Times, and Sheila Smith from the Council of Foreign Relations. But now joining us by phone from Tokyo is Linda Seig. She's the chief correspondent for Reuters. Welcome to Global Journalist.
Hi.
Hi.
Nice to be here.
Now, Linda, how is China reacting to the reported sale?
Well, China is angry, expressing anger over the plan by the Prime Minister and his government to purchase the islands. Today's report, the recent reports that the purchase is going through, are not the first time that China has become aware of this. It came up several weeks ago when the Prime Minister floated the plan basically in response to another plan by the governor of Tokyo, Shintaro Ishihara, who is well known as a harsh critic of China. And his proposal was for his metropolitan government of Tokyo to buy the islands. So in point of fact, although China says they own them and therefore no one in Japan should, no part of the government should be buying them, in a way the Japanese central government was trying to come up with a less inflammatory way of coping with the situation.
So on the surface, it seems like that the government's doing something aggressive and anti-Chinese, but in essence, this could be a good thing for their relations.
Well, it would be a good thing if China would perceive it that way. I think we can assume that there are back channels that the Japanese government is trying to explain that. I know the Deputy Prime Minister made comments to journalists today saying that, the intention is to have a stable situation, not to inflame the situation.
And let's put this dispute in some historical context. China says the islands have been its territory since the 14th century when they first appeared on Chinese maps during the Ming Dynasty. Japan claims it discovered the islands in 1884 and annexed them 9 years later after winning the first Sino-Japanese War. China counters that it was forced to sign the post-war treaty that effectively handed the islands over to Japan. And then the United States took control of the islands after World War II, but transferred them back to Japan in 1972. So this is quite a long history, this dispute. How is this latest news playing in the Japanese newspapers? Is it front page news?
It is often front page news. I think as you say, it flares up periodically. This time it flared up first when the governor of Tokyo made his proposal to buy the islands. It comes, however, in the context in which relations become tense because of the dispute tend to change somewhat over time. It is probably more of an issue now in Japan because of China's economic and military and diplomatic rise, both globally and regionally. So it comes in the context of kind of Japan feeling a sense of decline, or you might say threat from China at the same time that China is feeling, more self-confident, or you might even say aggressive. It comes at the same time, for example, as disputes in the South China Sea between China and Southeast Asian nations.
And besides the
where China,
right, and besides
Go ahead.
those geopolitical implications, there's some financial implications as well, aren't there? I know Reuters did an in-depth story recently on the impact of these somewhat soured relations on car sales. Can you explain that to us?
Right. Well, a Nissan Motor executive said today, speaking to reporters in China, that they were seeing, to use his words, some impact on Japanese car sales in China. It's probably a bit hard to quantify exactly what that impact is because it also comes at the time of a somewhat of a slowdown in the Chinese economy. But I think the point is that, an important point is that this is precisely the impact that neither side really wants to see. They don't want, neither Beijing nor Tokyo, the central governments, want to see any sort of significant damage to what are very mutually interdependent economic ties. The problem is that even if the central governments share that concern, they both face domestic political pressure not to look weak-kneed, not to look as if they're giving in to the other side because of public mistrust and because, particularly in the case of China, the legacy of the bitter history in the past, which even young people have been educated to know about.
Right. Now, looking ahead, do you see this dispute over these tiny islands getting worse or getting better? What would your gut feel? What's your gut feeling tell you on this?
I think that's a very difficult question to answer. I might even quote to you the president of Fast Retailing Company in Japan, which is the maker of the Uniqlo line of casual apparel, was speaking to Reuters earlier this week, and he is expanding there. His company is expanding in China, opening more stores. And what his quote sort of sums it up. He said, "It seems hard to read the future." That's partly because Japan is going through a very unstable political situation at the time. There will probably be an election within months. China is also facing a leadership change next month, once in a decade leadership change, and they're really devoting their primary energies and political capital to the domestic situation. So it makes it difficult, I think, to predict to what extent this can, in fact, be kept from getting out of hand, even if one assumes that the top leaders would prefer to calm it down.
Okay. Well, Linda, I really appreciate you taking the time today to join our program, and I'm eager to read your reports on how this issue develops.
Okay. Well, it's a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
You.
Goodbye.
Good night.
Good night.